Please be seated. Record again will reflect that we're back in session on State v. Fleischauer. Mr. Kaiser, the state's next rebuttal witness.
Yeah, may I approach this for a minute?
Sure.
Because she's,
He calls Heather Williams.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, it's been a couple of days, so if you'll face the clerk and raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Thank you. Come over and have a seat, and as you know, that microphone arm swings in and out. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, we previously received your credentials as a firearms expert. So my question to you is this. Does being a firearms enthusiast make a person a firearms expert?
No, it does not.
And how many years of training have you gone through to be a firearms expert?
I went through approximately 18 to 20 months of firearms and tool mark examiner training.
How often is your proficiency tested?
We are proficiency tested on a yearly basis.
Judge, I object to this. Is not an issue. My client didn't, or my witness did not give an opinion.
Okay, thank you, and again, it's foundational, and I'll reserve pending tie-up, Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. And do you also receive certifications to remain and continue to be able to testify as a firearms expert?
We have our proficiency tests. That's part of our certification.
You've had an opportunity to view what we've identified here in court as Exhibit 327, a video recording of a series of pistol tests done by a person named Corey Burton. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell us first what observations you have based on your training and experience regarding what you see holding the pistol in that video versus the experience of a human person holding the pistol?
What I viewed in the video is that it appeared that there was mannequin hands that were holding the sides of what appeared to be a holster, in which then the pistol was put into that holster, in which when you are firing a firearm, you're going to have a firm grip around that firearm in order to fire it.
That firm grip around the firearm allows you to control the firearm?
Correct, yes.
And in this particular case with this firearm, Exhibit 22, which you have fired, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
What does the firm grip on that firearm allow the firearm to do when you pull the trigger?
It allows it to be able to do the full cycle of a firearm, in which it's able to fire a bullet, then it is able to eject the fired cartridge case from that fired cartridge, allowing then the next round to be moved into the to-be-fired position in that firearm.
Was there anything, how would you describe, there was some discussion regarding the phrases single action and double action. So as I go through the next series of questions, I want you to sort of keep that frame in mind, all right? Would you characterize the Taurus PT-709 in this case that you have fired to be a single action or a double action weapon?
This is a double action semi-automatic pistol.
Is there anything unusual about this firearm?
No, there is not.
Could you tell us what, in your experience as a firearms expert, the difference is between a single action and a double action firearm?
As previously discussed, the main difference between a single action and a double action pistol is that a single action is going to do one action when that trigger of the firearm is pulled. That is to release the firing pin, allowing the cartridge in the to-be-fired position to be fired. With a double action, it's going to do two things. It's going to pull back that firing pin or striker of the firearm with the pull of the trigger, and also allows it to be released to fire that firearm. So in other words, single action does one action, double action does two actions in regards to the internal workings of that firearm.
When you test fired Exhibit 22, did you have any misfires?
I did not, no.
When you test fired Exhibit 22, were you trying to achieve any desired results?
I was looking to get test fires to compare against the fired evidence in this specific case.
You weren't looking to try to prove or disprove any fact?
Object
was
to that
not-
as leading, excuse me.
Sustained.
What, if any, results did you desire when you test fired Exhibit 22?
When I test fired Exhibit 22, it was to make sure that it was functioning properly and as the ways the manufacturer intended for it to be fired. And then also, again, to be able to collect test fires to compare against the fired evidence in this case.
No further questions.
Mr. Gray.
Yes, with respect to recoil on this pistol, you were asked the last time you appeared here, I see you again, that you were asked if you ever tested a pistol for kickback or recoil. Have you ever done?
No, we do not do that test at the crime laboratory.
Okay, do you know a laboratory that does?
I do not, no.
And it is true, is it not, that you only shot this gun, as I remember it, twice, is that right?
In this instance, correct, yes. I fired 2 test fires in this firearm.
Okay, so when you're asked if there's any misfires, you've shot the gun twice, correct?
Correct, yes.
And you do agree in the video, and not all of them, but a lot of them, the majority of them, when the pistol flew out from the robot, whatever you want to call it, it did eject the shell and did put another shell in the chamber on some of that testing, correct?
I was not able to view that from the video.
You didn't see that from the video?
I did not.
You didn't see the shells fly?
I did not.
Okay. Did you see the report on it?
I did see the report, yes.
And in the report, it says that the new shell was put in the gun and the old one is ejected on them. Do you question that?
From what I recall from the report that I saw, there were instances in which that did happen, and then there were instances in which that did not happen.
Yes, and one of those, and when it did happen, that would mean that whatever held that pistol was held firm enough so that it would eject the shell and put another one in it, correct?
Correct.
And as far as talking about the grip of this pistol not being a hand, right? You agree, that makes you question the testing, is that right?
From when you fire a firearm, typically one is going to hold that grip of the firearm with their hands. In this instance,
Okay, I didn't object, not responsive.
Sustained. If you just answer the question, Ms. Williams.
I'll ask it this way. You are, in life experiences, aware of other testing done by robots, correct?
I'm aware of that, yes.
Okay. And if this testing were to be done by somebody, the safe way to do it would be by a robot. Fair statement?
It could be done by a robot, yes.
Well, you wouldn't want a human pointing a pistol at them and shooting a gun at them, would you?
Correct, no, you would not want that.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Did you try to figure out whether there was any studies of recoil or kickback?
To my knowledge, I do not know of any validation studies regarding recoil of a firearm or regarding the recoil of a firearm and the distance that it may travel.
No further questions.
Mr. Gray.
I don't have any on it.
Thank you. Stand down, Ms. Williams. Mr. Kaiser.
State calls Nick Stahlke.
May I go outside for a minute, Your Honor, to check something?
Yes. Mr. Stahlke, again, if you'll raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, would you state your name and spell your first and last name for the record? And please speak up so everyone can hear you.
Nick Stahlke, Nick Stahlke.
Mr. Stahlke, you testified earlier. We've identified your curriculum vitae. But to remind us all, could you tell us where you work, please?
Yes, I work at the State Crime Laboratory in Madison.
And you were part of the team that responded to the address at 1489 142nd Street, Town of Richmond. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you've had a opportunity to review Exhibit 327, a video recording that shows a Taurus PT 709 being fired. Do you remember viewing such a recording?
I do.
What, if any, grip did you see that pistol being held on in the recording?
I don't believe there's any grip, no.
How, if in any way, was that pistol triggered, caused to shoot the gun?
There was a small plastic spacer that was in the trigger guard, between the trigger guard and the trigger, and it had a line on it,
Like a string, sort of?
a string, and when that was pulled, the gun fired.
When you observed that being done, what, if any, observations did you make about the direction of the pistol as it left the humanoid figure and the direction of the string?
Object to that, Your Honor. The video speaks for itself.
Overruled. It's a matter of weight. If any of the jury gives it, you can answer.
It appeared the gun would go in the direction of the string.
Besides your work at the crime lab, do you teach anywhere? Or have you taught in the past?
Yes, I have.
Where?
A number of places. Taught in bloodstains at College of DuPage. I've taught law enforcement agencies in a crime scene processing course in EBTICS school, and I give frequent presentations around the state to law enforcement, to include Division of Criminal Investigations, Death Investigation School.
In your business as a crime lab person with a variety of expertises, have you ever heard of or seen a reconstruction such as this of the firing of a pistol and its attempted to replicate its recoil?
I've never seen that, no.
Mr. Stahlke, showing you Exhibit 11. Do you recognize that photograph?
I do.
Has to republish to the jury, Judge.
Yes.
Thank you. '11 is one of the photos taken while your team was at the scene of the shooting of Chase Fleichauer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does photograph number 11, what, if anything, does photograph number 11 show on the floor in the hallway?
Judge, I object to this as improper rebuttal. There's nothing was brought about in my case about that on the floor.
Subject to tie-up, Mr. Kaiser. Court will reserve on striking it if it doesn't tie up. Mr. Kaiser.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stahlke, I'll ask a different question. We can see, can we not, a piece of paper on the floor in the hallway?
I can.
All right. And what was drawn on that piece of paper when you were there?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Counsel, why don't you approach? Mr. Kaiser, court has overruled the objection, ladies and gentlemen, and if you want to restate the question, I can have the court reporter.
I'll restate it, Judge. Thank you very much. Mr. Stahlke, on the left side of the photograph, there appears to be a piece of paper on the carpeting in the hallway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you recall what was drawn on that piece of paper?
I do.
What was it?
It was a drawing of a rough drawing of a pistol or a handgun.
And what, if anything, were you told in your initial conversation with officers when you got there about what that piece of paper was there to designate?
Object to that as hearsay, Your Honor, and repetitious. We've gone over this in the trial.
It is the trial still.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, it's foundational, and the jury will again give it weight only if they recall the testimony. Mr. Kaiser, overruled.
What was that piece of paper there to designate?
It was there to represent the original position of the firearm when first responders responded to the scene.
Now, moving from the hallway towards and into the kitchen, while you and your team were there, could you tell us what appeared to be in front of the refrigerator?
One of the bar stools.
And where was another of the bar stools in relation to Chase Fleischauer's body?
There was a bar stool that was on its side underneath his left foot and leg.
Is there a portion of the island that appears on the left side of the island?
There is.
The bar stool that you found to be in and amongst Chase Fleischauer's legs, where is that in relation to the portion of the island that's on the left side?
Object to that. The video speaks for it, or the picture speaks for itself, Your Honor. It's also gone over in the trial. Now in the total trial.
I'm trying to.
Thank you. With the understanding it's going to be tied up as rebuttal, court will permit it. You can answer.
Where does the bar stool that appears to be entangled in Mr. Fleischauer's feet appear to be in relation to a part of the island?
The bar stool was located along the long portion of the bar, or the actual countertop. It was a bit of a U-shaped with sharp corners, and so there's a small portion that is directly to the west. There's a longer portion that leads to the southwest, and then there's another small portion on the leading on the south aspect of the
Force of orientation to where that stool is, what, if anything, appears on the bar counter approximately where you've indicated for us?
There's a red drinking container.
Showing what's been marked as Exhibit 27, or, sorry, showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 27. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What does Exhibit 27 show?
Exhibit number 27 is again a enlarged photograph indicating, or it's an image taken at the scene, and it exhibits the countertop of the kitchen in the center of it. So we're looking down the long axis of the longer portion of that countertop.
Asked to republish 27.
Granted.
So, Mr. Stahlke, can you tell us what appears just to the lower right of center on the counter?
That's a second lower level of this countertop. There's actually a bar height level, and then there's a counter level.
Judge, I object to this as repetitious. He testified to this previously.
And I understand, Mr. Gray, but this is all subject to tying up to your defense, and if it doesn't, trust me, I'll strike it all. Mr. Kaiser.
In the video recording that you saw from Mr. Burton, how many levels were there to the wooden thing in front of the humanoid figure that supposedly had the gun in its hand?
If I recall, it's just the floor.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Just the floor?
The
So
floor?
there's a floor, and then do you recall, and if you don't, let me know, but do you recall whether or not the alleged elbows of the humanoid figure were leaning on something?
There were two different setups, one with him in an upright position and one with a position where he had his elbows, and there was a countertop, if I recall.
How many levels did that countertop have?
Just the one.
The island here where Chase's feet were tied up in the stool at the bottom, that has 2 levels, is that correct?
That's correct.
Object to this, Your Honor, it's leading and repetitious. We've established it has 2 levels.
So noted. Let's move on, Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. Now, investigator, you said that, or Mr. Stahlke, you said that Exhibit 27 was as this vicinity appeared when you and your team were there, because this is a crime lab photo, is that correct?
That's correct.
Could you describe for us, so the record has it, what appears to be on that second lower level of the countertop?
There's a white and blue-black striped hoodie, if I recall.
And it's sitting on the, where's it sitting in relation to the bar level of the island?
It's sitting on the cabinet level, or the lower level.
Judgment has been received in evidence as Exhibit 39. I'm not asking you if you were there when this picture was taken, but do you recognize the scene depicted in Exhibit 39?
I do.
And what vicinity is Exhibit 39 depicting?
Exhibit 39 is depicting the body of the victim lying in the middle of the dining room floor.
Asked to republish 39 to jury.
So noted, granted.
How, if in any way, is Chase Fleischauer's feet and the stool that it's with, is that in any way different than the way you had it depicted in your photographs?
No, it appears to be very similar.
All right. So directing your attention, though, then to our left in Exhibit 39, what appears next to the bar stool by Chase Fleischauer's feet? There's some mail that's laying on the floor, but there's also an AED that appears to be attached to some patches on Chase Fleischauer's body. All right. And then you can see the stool that's by his feet, is that correct?
Excuse me?
Sorry, I'll ask it a different way. In Exhibit 39, what, if anything, do you see at Chase Fleischauer's feet?
There's an overturned stool.
All right. And then looking just beyond the overturned stool, what do you see there?
There's another stool that's upright.
And can you describe what, if anything, you see on the not overturned stool that's upright?
There appears to be a white and black and blue striped, possibly, or it's a garment of some sort.
Is the stool with the garment on it that you just described in Exhibit 39 in the place you described earlier as being, from our perspective, the left side of the bar stool area of the island?
Judge, I object to this. It's improper rebuttal, repetitious.
And again, Mr. Kaiser, I trust you're tying this up, correct?
Judge.
With that offer of proof, let's proceed.
The location of the stool, bar stool in Exhibit 39 is not the location in which we saw it when we were processing the scene.
Based on Exhibit 39, correct me if I'm wrong, would it have been in the place that's to the left side of the bar stool counter area of the island?
Yes.
Now, you saw the video, Exhibit 327, that was created to kind of in an attempt to show where a pistol might fly when it recoiled. Is that your understanding of what you
Object,
watched?
Your Honor, that was created to show that the pistol would fly and eject the shell and put another shell in and go a distance of up to 10 feet. It wasn't shown exactly where it was going.
Well, and I understand, Mr. Gray, that's why this is rebuttal. You'll have a chance to cross-examine as well, so let's proceed. Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you. Sir, assuming, we're not conceding, but assuming that that video that you watched would have Chase Fleischauer sitting on the stool in the place where that red cup appears, where, based on, if you were to be relying on that video, where would the pistol go?
Object to that is
Sustained as to the form of that question.
Going back to Exhibit 27. Mr. Stahlke, what portion of the kitchen is in line with the angular part of the bar stool area of the island?
We could call that the front edge of the island.
Fine.
And if we're talking about what's lined up beyond that front edge, would be the lower countertop, and then the area of the kitchen that includes the countertops that were on the back walls, which included the range or the oven.
It may be that Exhibit 11 shows that better. What's in that sort of back corner underneath the cabinets?
This is your typical setup of where you have a corner of a kitchen with countertops. There's a range.
Judge, I object to this as a typical setup.
Sustained,
Never been in the house before.
sustained. And again, if you can restrict your testimony, Mr. Stahlke, to this picture now, what's typical?
Okay. In this particular kitchen, you had countertops that met in the corner. There's a range just to the right of the refrigerator, and there's a sink and off to the right, and with a dishwasher in the base cabinet.
And the hallway is where in relation to all of that?
The hallway is off to the left, adjacent to the wall that protrudes out alongside the refrigerator.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Mr. Gray.
Thank you. You are aware that the shell from the pistol was ejected and flew to the left, looking at this, flew to the left, down to the entranceway. You aware of that?
I know that it was located in the entryway.
Okay. It was located in the entryway, which is just to the left of this hallway, correct?
That's correct.
And you do not know how Chase Fleischauer was sitting on that stool, do you?
I do not know that
And
exactly.
you do not know if he was facing to the right or to the left or straight ahead for the hallway, do you?
I can't say that for sure, no.
You don't know.
No.
Pardon?
No.
And you said that you looked at the video?
I did.
Did you look at the first part of the video about the plastic gadget or whatever it was and how it was hooked up and how it was pulled?
I did see that, yes.
And did you see that when it was pulled, it was totally disconnected from the pistol?
Oh, it wasn't a part of the pistol, you mean?
That's correct.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, so did you testify, make sure here. Did you testify that the pistol seemed to go in the direction of the string? Is that what you testified to? Maybe I misunderstood you.
No, that was in the first portion of the, or the second portion of that video. The first piece I saw was the setup with the plastic piece with just the gun propped up. And when it was pulled to the side. In the second portion of that video, which I testified to, it appeared to have been, the string was pulled in the direction the weapon went after it was fired.
Okay. And you do agree that on some of those video pictures, the shell ejected and another shell was put in the fire, correct?
That I do not know for
You
sure.
don't know? Did you read the report?
I did not read the report.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Nothing else, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you. You can stand down, Mr. Stahlke. Mr. Kaiser.
Say rest or rebuttal.
Thank you. Mr. Gray, any sir rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to have about 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take 5 minutes exactly, so plan on being back in here at 1:30. Don't form your opinion. If any discussion, start your deliberations. 5 minutes. Take the jury out, please.
All rise.
Please be seated. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Your Honor. In sir rebuttal, the defense calls Corey Burton back to the stand.
Mr. Burton, if you'll come up and again be sworn, sir.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Be seated. Mr. Gray.
Thank you. Mr. Burton, directing your attention to the video that you made, when you pulled the string to cause the gun to go off. We've already seen the video about the plastic that you pulled. How did you pull that string?
That string was pulled perpendicular to the weapon within a couple of degrees, both in the demonstration that I showed in the first video on the table and then in the actual firing sequence of the gun.
Did you pull it all the way to the left at any time?
I pulled that acrylic remote trigger with just enough force to pull it through the gun. Of course, there's some pressure or extraneous force applied to that, but nothing that would alter the path of the gun.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiser.
So you're offering the opinion that it didn't alter the path of the gun, is that correct?
That is my opinion.
Ask it be stricken, it's an opinion.
Thank you, stricken. He was not qualified as an expert.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Gray?
Yes. One other question. When the gun went flying, did it fly straight all the time?
It did not fly straight all the time.
Thank you, that's all.
Nothing else?
Thank you. You can stand down, sir. Mr. Gray, anything else?
Firearm arrest.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, evidence is closed. However, it does not permit you to begin forming any opinions, starting your deliberations or your discussions. There are several things that the attorneys and I will need to do now to get this case ready for submission to you, which means we're breaking for the day, meaning you're breaking for the day. We're going to continue to stay and do some additional work. As a result, folks, as you know, do not go home and conduct any experiments, do any research, do any type of investigation, go online to review any real-time recordings of this, talk to anyone, have any discussions with any third persons. I will let you sleep in tomorrow morning if you can be here by 8:30. We'll then start by 8:45 or so. And the final phase then will be the instructions of the court together with the arguments of the attorneys. So with that said, you are excused for the day. Leave your notes with the bailiff. We'll see you by 8:30-ish. Thank you.
All rise.
Thanks very much.
Well, we're off the record. Council take 20 minutes, half hour. We'll come back in and start our instruction conference and verdict conference.
Appreciate that, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you.